Wednesday night, 9 p.m. this time. I'll explain why in a minute. It's a fun day. So sit tight if you are here with us. And we're going to share this in a few of our groups so that everyone has access and is aware of what we're doing. If you are present, naturally, you can do a few things. You could say hello in the comments. You can maybe share how your experience is today, what you're feeling, what's going on. You can start a watch party. This is always helpful. I'm sure there's many others that can benefit from what we're going to explore tonight in this topic of awakening the light within. Really going to ground this. Hey, Dan. So we're going to get started in just a few minutes, likely before that. But as I mentioned, we're going to share in a couple of our groups now and really get situated for this flow tonight. And once again, if you are coming in, say hello in the comments, start a watch party, whatever feels most resonant to you. Hello to everyone in the Universal Awakening group, in the Awaken Teachings group, on my page, everywhere. So many of you these days, and it's wonderful. I mean, this is the time. If there's no other time, this would be the time. And so we're good. So welcome, everyone. If you've been joining us regularly in these experiences on Wednesday and Sundays at usually 8:30 p.m. Eastern, maybe you're waiting patiently. But I had a long day in nature, and I was just about to I was seeing the sunset, and then hopping on this live. I was going to share the sunset with all of you, but there's a lot of people, a lot of noise, so I ended up just driving to the Peace Room here, where we have this beautiful screen. I've never showed everyone like this full screen that we have here. That's quite magnificent. Peace Room's an amazing space here in Ottawa, the capital. It's where we've done all our live events generally. And now we're doing our live events, but with no one else here, which is okay. There's so many of you here online, so it's great to connect. Again, say hello if you are joining us tonight. As I mentioned, I spent the whole day in nature, playing in the mud, putting mud on me and clay, making little Aboriginal statues in the forest, running in the forest, playing in the sun, an endless exploration in this beautiful time now we have in spring, now close to summer. And I'm really going to highlight the topic tonight as we're approaching the solstice, because naturally, we've just moved out of the spring, and, it's so funny. I was, just simply walking for hours today, and it was almost overnight that all of a sudden spring has just bloomed. The magnificence of spring, in the essence of the blooming of flowers, the blooming of greens, the blooming of everything, the animals, just the activity. It's like almost overnight it just popped up, and it was such a blessing to observe this and to experience the union, and we can experience in our own timeline right now as we are coming into this new phase now of this collective experience we've all been transitioning through, where certain lockdowns and quarantines are being released a little bit, or at least the changing of the tide, we could say, is here. I will say, there's quite much more fun that is in store for us all. Nonetheless, I do feel that we are moving towards the solstice in natural fashion. And the solstice every year, of course, is the peak. It's the light of the year. It is the peak of light in our experience. And of course, we can access this light every day, every moment, because we are this light, and we are not here to seek light. Rather, we are to be this light. And naturally, light would not seek out itself. It would simply shine upon the darkness and the shadow and the illusion. And this is, of course, why in every traditional path, the path of renunciation and fasting, and basically with the willingness to experience some sort of pain, is the primary entry-level path. Because if one can navigate a certain relationship with pain in a beautiful way, of course, then their relationship to pleasure now transforms. And in the culture that we are, most of us, in, and just the predominant essence of our times, which gives us, an access point to very quick hits of pleasure, then there can be at times imbalances here. And so, there's an opportunity in us recognizing the light in which we are to continue to shine this on the pains and the suffering of our experience, because this is what brings us into a great remembrance of our light and who we are. And in the times we're in naturally now, whether we like it or not, the shadow is collectively being revealed. And the beautiful aspect of this, and the beautiful remembrance we always have to have when we are facing any sort of challenge or suffering, and in any moment we're experiencing this, is recognizing that that for this to be available to be seen, naturally there has to be light or awareness, observance, witnessing this suffering, this pain, this darkness, this shadow. And so if this is the remembrance at any point in which we are experiencing any sort of suffering or pain or disease or confusion, and etc., naturally it's almost as an instantaneous meditation where we can come back to ourselves, come back to the simple observance of what is and what is arising. And this can happen in various levels, where naturally there's an original arising of just seeing the thoughts and feelings and sensations in which make up our human experience, them being witnessed by something. And for countless amount of times I've given this example of how if we can observe an object like a laptop, that I'm observing right now, or a phone, or, a space, these are objects of attention in which we can observe from the subject of our body and mind. Though when we close our eyes, of course, then we see something else. We see the moving thoughts and feelings and sensations in which are now the objects of our attention. And so in this layer of inquiry, we come to a certain witnessing, a presence to these things. And then even within that space of connecting to presence, which can be experienced in different ways. We can experience a sense of being, a sense of energy, a sense of knowing, a subtle movement of this energy that's present. Of course, now this is the new experience, and this is what generally starts to bring a certain blissfulness, a certain opening, less of an interest in entertaining many of the thoughts or feelings and sensations that are coming and going, at least entertaining them as if they are ourselves, misidentifying with them as ourselves, some negative thought, some perspective about ourselves, some judgment of some other, some fear we have of past or future. These are less of an interest because this presence is now filling up the lens, and filling up the lens of our perception is really all that we are ever doing. We are being aware of something and then naturally either giving more attention to that or less attention to it. And naturally, as we continue down the road of pure self-inquiry, we continue to come to this place where we recognize now that we are even observing this sense of energy. And now this becomes our place of focus. This presence, this sense of being, this very simple essence, which, as I mentioned, I was in nature all day, and it is very easy to get into that when you're in nature because all that you're interacting with is yourself. And the body and mind respond very well to this and naturally quiet down because you are getting the nourishment of all the elements, right? Just playing in the soil of the mud and the clay and the stream, getting the water. I have my hands in the mud. I'm putting the mud on me. I'm being blasted by the sun all day, breathing in the sun, communicating with the sun. Communication with the sun is a powerful tool. You know, we can communicate it with it as if it's a living being, and develop a relationship with it where we'll be nourished tenfold than, you know, just having no relationship whatsoever. Of course, we always have one, but, you know, depending on the degree of awareness, depending on the degree of our ability to quiet the body and mind so we can come back to home and see and perceive with clear eyes. And so we have this water, which at some point I was with the water, and I was experiencing the water and all the information and the memory that water carries. And so you can reprogram that water with your intention. You can heal this water. The water requires healing just as much as every other aspect of the earth and ourselves. So the communication of the loving intent that we have when we are in a stream or connected in nature, this goes for the trees, the animals, singing a song while you're in nature, you know? Being present with the animals, not disrupting them, just observing them, being with them. I was walking down the pathway, and these two birds were just hopping along, and they slowed down when I was coming close, so I just slowed down and I followed them for, you know, a good 5 minutes or so, and they just kept hopping along. They didn't want to fly, they just kept hopping along, not disturbing anything, just observing, just being with, you know, an endless amount of other animals. And then I came to a beaver dam. It was so beautiful. It's a gigantic beaver dam. I've never seen one like that in person. Just magnificent what all these little creatures can do to almost literally level half the forest to get all these trees and make this dam. You know, and then so many other animals gather. So for those Canadians out there, here we're in Canada, we have the beaver as our magnificent animal. It's quite magnificent, I must say. But all I'm getting at here is that when we're in nature, naturally the body and mind can soften itself so that we can connect in a very clear way to this presence, this energy, where we can again be at one with our experience, be at one with the natural fluidity of how nature communes with us and how we commune with nature. Of course, nature extends to all animals, all their living beings, humans as well. So to connect to nature is not just like go in a forest and hug a tree, you know, it's the connecting to the true essence of nature, which sources all of the manifested nature. This pure energy is what sources all of this manifested forest and sunlight and, you know, the air and the water. And then, of course, in the reflection of ourselves within this, you know, human experience, we have our human relationships, which reflect this nature as well. And of course, if we can come to a place where there's a deeper clarity in the seeing of our energy at the core, not necessarily all the movements of thoughts and feelings and sensations in which we get pulled with and potentially, you know, get wrapped up in and identified with, we are connected to this pure essence of energy, where we can really move with the fluidity of our relationships, let's say, with other humans. Because there's a willingness to see beyond the thoughts, feelings, sensations in which they are identified with, potentially, or what was moving through them and what they may be speaking or projecting, etc. We can look to connect to the pure essence of what is within another. And this is, of course, what comes back to the golden rule. Treat another as you desire to be treated is the entry-level teaching of just being nice and compassionate and loving. And then it reveals this inquiry process where, as we are observant now of this energy, we can recognize an even deeper layer of subtlety, which is deeply silent, so subtle, so silent and subtle, like this very thin film. And so in relaxing into that, then naturally there's even an observance of this. There's an observance of this silence, this pure essence that's ever present. And so at a certain point of practicing this, where we can first be aware of, you know, our external environment, And it's going to be much easier to do that eyes open when you're in nature, or in some space where you can allow for the body to naturally come to ease. It's not that you can't do it in a city or anything, but it's of course an opportunity in nature to really very quickly come to this. But regardless, when we move inwards, we will still see movements of thoughts and feelings and sensations in which, when the body and mind are balanced, naturally they are less. When the body and mind are not so balanced, it is going to be more difficult. It's not impossible, but it will be more difficult, depending on the individual. And then through that observance, we see that there's something observing. At least there's an energy behind it all. And we're continuing to go beyond. You know, I saw Bentuno Massaro speak today, just briefly. I don't watch his stuff too much anymore, but, you know, he's speaking on a very similar technique. It's all really the same technique. The direct method of inquiry, the direct method of connection to oneself, the core essence, is a process of continuing to reveal what is the source of this creation. You know, as the video I posted today. To seek out an objective God has been happening for aeons, until naturally one recognizes that to find the source of creation is only going to come by way of one moving to the source of their subjective creation, this subjective human experience, incarnate experience. So to move to the source of one's subjective creation or subjective experience is naturally what reveals the source. What else do we have at our disposal? I mean, we can go to the endless realms of the universe. We could read an endless amount of books, listen to a million different teachers, but, you know, the practicing of coming back to the source of this being and this experience and this knowing is an endless practice, we could say. But there's certain layers, as we've just kind of gone through, that will be clear, you know. Connect with a sense of emptiness, which then turns into a sense of fullness, which then emerges into a sense of pure love, and then dissolves completely into, you know, what some call absolute nature or absolute self. Which in a sense, it really points one back to the reality that everything is the source. Every moment is the source. Every experience is the source. In other words, every moment is enlightened, every experience is enlightened, every person's enlightened, every being's enlightened, every universe is enlightened. Everything is this enlightened source. And yet there's still a human experience unfolding. There's still imperfections within the nature. There's still, but these are not seen as such. They're just expressions of the one. So in essence, it continues to bring us back to our individual experience, you know, that everything is valid. When we look out these eyes, when we look out this, whatever this is, we see that everything within the manifested world that we live in is equal in value. Nothing has greater value than anything else, because everything is manifested from the same source. So that in itself is a meditation. That in itself is a practice. It's a journaling exercise. It's a moment-to-moment unfolding, which reveals naturally where within one's experience does that not seem the case. You know, some person or idea, some belief, some happening that seems less valuable or more valuable than something else. So we can see that the process of awakening is not necessarily a process that, if we were to logically think about, that we'd be that excited about. You know, until you really have realigned the logic in one's mind, you know, through some, you know, in some study and some teachings and generally verbal that the mind can piece together and say, oh yes, there is actually a desire to be completely dismantled and destroyed by this truth, in a sense of revealing all the rigidity, all the holding to ideas and opinions, all the perspectives that you think are so valuable, the desires of the future, the traumas of the past, who you believe yourself to be, who you think you need to become. All of these things, these are endlessly happening for all of us, myself included. We are each experiencing this endlessly, just being humbled again and again and again and again and again and again and again. humbled endlessly back to this space where there is nothing that can be taken to the truth of who you are, the truth of this pure presence, pure essence, pure source. Nothing can come with you there. And yet everything that is whatever happening in the mind and the body and the sensations and in your day-to-day life and your experience and all of that, all of it included, is all equally valid. Because to know yourself as this energy, as this source, as this purity, is to recognize that every manifested experience that moves all of these things within your body and your mind and within the external world, all of the things that you come in contact with, all the relationships, all the happenings, they are all equally made up of the same source. It has always been the case. What's beautiful about the times we're in now is that the manifested existence is now going to move through its cycle where this source reveals itself in all ways, in the most obvious of ways. Right? Beauty and luxury and all of the magnificence of what this planet and what our creation has to offer endlessly evolves itself. And this is the time in which that will continue to be the case. The advancement and the raising of consciousness is one that then brings the heavens to the earth. It brings the heavens to the manifested form, where we're not needing to go to no heavens. We are bringing it right here. We are living it. And thus then everything we touch, everything we see, everything we move into, everything we intend continues to bring that forth and continues to transform, like taking your hand and wiping it clear, wiping reality clear. This is what it means to live through the heart, to see through the heart, to speak through the heart, to feel through the heart, act through the heart. Endlessly just wiping everything clear. For everything that you come in contact with, everything you come across, every situation, every being, every person, everything you come in contact with, you are bringing this light everywhere. And, light is light. So whether your light is this big or whatever has been remembered, whatever is flowing through you at this present time, that is enough. That's exactly what it's meant to be. Because everything, in a sense, fills the holes, fills the gaps. The gaps are always filled. So what this means is that everyone has their place within consciousness. So when we perceive one who we feel needs to be more awakened, this is illusionary. Or someone who's more awakened is illusionary. There's a reality, yes, to those who have higher responsibility, because we are all equal in value. But we have different levels of responsibility, and that will be the determining nature of our wisdom and what we carry, and this is why we look to teachers and mentors and all of this, and they're all still highly valuable, clearly, because our world is not out of the gunk yet. That's the practical way of looking at it. But yet at the same time, it's perfect exactly how it's happening, exactly as it is, exactly how every being is, wherever they're at on the scale of consciousness. Is completely cool. And as there is a further desire within each that comes forth, a spark that desires to know, that matches your desire to know, naturally then that's where your light can then pour into this being, and you could depart your wisdom and your knowledge if you like, or just by way of your presence, your uniqueness, the simple presence of you. That's enough many times. So the filling of the gaps means that everything is always in the right order. Everything's always in the right place. And so we're continually asked to dissolve the ideas we have about things not being in that place, or people not being in that place, or what have you. This is a great practice because it gives us back the power that we had never really lost, but a remembrance that the only real duty we have is to awaken within, to come to this light, to let it fill up ourselves more and more and more and more. And then naturally, if there's a desire to share that can be done, and will be done only to those who are ready. There can be no forcing. There's no use to force anything. Come back to the naturalness of our path. So I'm noticing there's quite a few of comments and all these things, so I'm going to just take a look at the chat. If there's any questions in particular, and actually I'm feeling in a kind of question vibe, or just a topic, a word that may be desirable to speak about. I don't know if I can see all these questions, or these comments, but I will look. Say hello if you're here. Hey, Gabia, Lily, Mary. Everything that's being spoken here is accessible for each of you. It's important to remember and to be reminded of. Because the practices are in the way of being. Our way of being is to continue to be humbled by life through the way of allowing life to continue to reveal all of the stuff within the body that is meant to be revealed. This is the purification process, a process that is painful, naturally. Because if you put gunk in it, naturally you're going to have to take gunk out. And yes, it is perfect, and it is in alignment with the natural unfolding of each of our journey. And yet it can still be painful. And this is where we merge the transcendent and embodied experience, where naturally there's many different teachings around, and it's common for teachings to present themselves on one side. This idea of a transcendent practice or an embodied practice. But the reality is, all practices are one. If we can see with clear eyes, if we can navigate the journey in a very simplified manner. So the journey of a closed-eyed self-inquiry, where we're continuing to observe what is this, what is this, what is this, what I am not, what I am not, what I am not, is equal, in a sense, to the nature of experiencing the journey in the path, where you are affirming all of reality as yourself. Right? Encapsulating it in the grandmother arms, bringing it all back home, all back into oneself. So in this case, there's a question of how we are continuing to merge our desires into the one desire, which is to know oneself. To see that all of the desires that we have are ultimately the same desire. They're the same desire to know oneself, to know this love, to know this purity, and to act through this love and to act through this compassion endlessly. This is the ultimate desire that we are each experiencing in a multitude of ways. And so as we can see this, we can cultivate the energy that is being siphoned into various things that that in a sense we believe to be a god. And that will be a product of the lens in which we are viewing out of, the perception, sometimes the traumas that are being experienced, etc. So there is a continual asking and an inquiry to see the authenticity of one's desire. What is truly being desired from this activity? That could be endless amount of things. And to see that as we ask this question and as we inquire with this, which can be an ongoing practice, can be a meditation, can be a journal, can be a contemplation, just to continue to source what is the true intent, the true authentic desire that's present here. And through this perception, through this movement of energy, we can see very clearly where there may be an inauthentic expression, an expression that may not necessarily be true, or through the revealing of awareness, we see that it is actually presenting suffering when we may have thought it was presenting us, these pleasures and various things, or the pleasures in which we are now experiencing in the body are not necessarily as desirable. And in the right time, like a leaf falling off a tree, this naturally will be cultivated back into the desire to know the truth, where this energy is alchemized, this energy is cultivated into a fixation on a devotional lens of loving compassion for oneself and the ripples that all actions take and all words take and all thoughts take and all feelings take. Remember, nothing goes unlogged within the universe. In the greatest of secrecy, in the most private of endeavors that you may experience, naturally this is logged on the memory bank. So we're in a time where we're seeing, these surveillance things or whatever being put out, or, all these things about 5G, all that, about surveillance, and there's all these fears about surveillance. Naturally, we have to question, why is there so much fear around surveillance? Get it, I understand the nature of intentions behind those who may control some of these surveillance tools. However, if we just get to the fundamental root of our own integrity, to come back to ourselves, to see how do we act in private, how do we act within the depths of our own being, and how does this express? This is the true authentic transparency that we come to as we become light beings, because as we're light beings, naturally we're connecting telepathically, we're connecting to the realms of energy, we're connecting to the realities that our thoughts and our feelings and our intentions manifest instantaneously. So if we are not clear as to what is being held within, naturally then it will manifest very quickly, and we will get that in the feedback. So this ongoing sourcing of our integrity and our authentic expression and where these desires are moving, this is how we cultivate. So we are not to resist desire, we are just simply to be discerning. Disciplined yet compassionate, Soft love, tough love. This is the ongoing balance that we are riding the wave with. And it's a beautiful thing. So again, I'm gonna, as promised, look at these some of these comments in some of the groups here. Okay, I answered your question before you post. There we go. Much love, David. Zara, Yoki, Rhonda, we all need to embrace this. This is true. There's nothing that needs to be changed. Embraced. Can I comment on the energy of this week? Well, in my experience, at least how I shared initially today, I spoke on the topic of how I played in nature, in the forest all day. And I was just feeling the natural urge and call to close the laptop and get outside, be in nature. But as this is occurring, this is happening obviously at a time where in the northern hemisphere, up in Ottawa, Canada, we have sunlight for almost a whole week, 20-degree weather and all that, which is quite a blessing after quite a long kind of cool winter and spring. And so, the whole day was spent in nature playing. And likely tomorrow. I feel that this is a common theme for much of us watching as a whole, specifically because the internet has been flooded with consciousness and energy and perspectives and opinions and beliefs and studies and videos and theories and etc. It's been flooded with all of these things. And so if we are not careful, it's very quick that we can get caught up in the flood, where we don't recognize that we do have the power and ability to close the laptop, to put the phone down, to go and connect with ourselves through whatever practices that supports us. Now, naturally, some of us may feel connected when we are going online, because we see other people and we're connecting in ways in which we cannot as much physically. So there's going to be, an energy exchange that's happening there that we have to just simply be in balance with and be observant of. And as this occurs, firstly, we can navigate all of the opinions and perspectives and studies and posts and articles, etc., in a mindful way where we are not jumping to conclusions, nor are we allowing for any specific perspective or opinion or study, etc., to pull us away from the naturalness of ourselves, the ease of naturalness, the peace of our naturalness, the contentment, the compassion, the beauty that exists here all of the time. And of course, the more time we spend either in nature or in connecting to our natural essence through our meditative practices, through being in a devotional space of love and compassion, going to sing to nature, meditating upon those who are suffering, chanting something in which feels that your whole body's lighting up, painting a picture, walking your dog, giving them a hug, whatever's in alignment for you at this time. This has to be of a much greater proportion than us getting fixated and caught in the lens of a million other lenses, if you can get what I mean with this, So there's an opportunity here in this period, and for many of you that I'm doing, often one-on-one stuff with, or just in these group sessions, we have a full kind of retreat weekend virtual thing experience happening this weekend, which I'll link in the description, or you can go search it, Awaken Virtual Weekend. We'll be going through Tai Chi energy cultivation. We'll be going through aesthetic dance and sound healing. We'll be going through how to open the throat chakra on Sunday, along with another session like this regularly on Sunday evening. So the whole weekend will be filled. But what I'm getting at is the more we're connected back to ourselves and back to the power in which we have, then naturally we begin to create our clear perspectives and opinions and studies and all of that, because everything is coming from within. We have to understand, we can navigate the entirety of the situation collectively from an inner compass that guides you in each moment, as it always has, that guides you back to the simple things always, as it always will, in a way just that simply keeps us in a place where we feel at home, we feel at peace, we feel okay, no matter how crazy the world gets, no matter how much change is unfolding around us, no matter how much emotions we're having to deal with around other people or all of these things. There's a certain balance that we can walk with. So part of the intention, as I was speaking about this retreat coming up this weekend, is moving towards the solstice. We have 4 weeks up until the solstice now, almost to the day. And in this 4-week period, there is a real openness to continue to cultivate, to continue to come into clarity. Not that there's not ever any other thing to do, but we're in a time where every year, as we come into solstice, there's a heightening, and we can really ride that wave. So, as much as it may seem like there's something to do, like attending on the weekend, it's just simply to ride the wave, move in a surrendered fashion, where there isn't a pushing and pulling against everything that's coming at you at this time, because of course many of us may be feeling like there's a lot that's coming at us, which can be justified in some ways, but in other ways we have to remember, we are put in a place where staying at home or staying to ourselves or staying in our own bubble, or the plethora of different recommendations, is the current prescription. So as much as there may be resistance to that, and I assume many of you are necessarily not maybe resisting that so much, because there's a beauty of this already, but wherever life is pointing you, see if you can continue just to ride the wave into that direction. Not that you're allowing all of the circumstance and environment to dictate what your life is about or who you are, but to recognize that you can move with a naturalness of fluidity and flow, and you likely will come back and return to the same place that you have always been, and the outcome will be the same. The difference is that you experience it more effortlessly, experience it with more ease, experience it with more openness. Now, for holding traumas in the body, if there's a plethora of things that are requiring attention and healing, which is much of what we're doing in these sessions. It's what I'm doing in one-on-ones often with many of you. It's a revealing of these energies so that more fluidity can occur, so that we can continue to choose the path of least resistance and the natural fluidity in which is always available for us all. And as that continues to get clearer, then more structure can come within one's life, where it's not just a airy-fairy go with the flow and everything, but it's a go with the flow and have a structure within your experience. Both are valid and both are equal. Both are necessary. So this is the energy of this week. This is the energy of this time. And this is the trajectory that we have towards the solstice. And it will be beyond that, but this gateway that we have, where many of the things are being, the lockdowns and quarantines are being released, and a little bit, this is an opening for an experience of, well, what now have you gathered from this time? What clarity are you now stepping into as we move, into further change? And there will be endlessly more opportunities for this, don't worry, but in this, at least initial space, we're coming into solstice. It's the most beautiful time of the year, in my opinion. I love it. Petawawa, yeah, I live there. So if there's further questions, I see a question on forgiveness. I will dive into that. If one has nothing to fear, there'd be no worries of surveillance. As you said, all is universally logged within our memories anyways. This is, of course, the truth, yes. Now, we have to, of course, understand that the anger that may arise when you're seeing these things is naturally because maybe it's being done in a out-of-sequence type of way. With the feminine as the foundation. And that's what's being returned now. We recognize the feminine essence is the foundation. And this is where all comes from. The pushing and pushing and pushing that the patriarchal essence and society and way of being has manifested naturally comes back to the feminine again. It gets humbled and humbled and humbled. It's like when the earth has had enough, she shows her wrath as she is now. And this is what always balances things. So this wrath that's being is manifested in the conspiracies or protesting or all that is also a beautiful thing. It's all welcomed in a sense. We just simply have to choose what is the path that we would like to navigate. We may not feel resonant with going to protest, which is of course so beautiful, where we feel like we can navigate this experience inwardly. We can see that we can move through our own inner protest, protest against the aspects of self in which are simply out of date, expired, and lovingly allow for them to pass on. And this goes for any potential thing that's triggering or creating fear when you look at the news headlines, which hopefully you're not looking at too much of, or if that's your thing, then that's your thing. So the topic of forgiveness. Forgiveness is an ongoing practice. It's like gratitude, appreciation, compassion, love, respect, integrity, reverence. These are all ongoing principles in which are to be demonstrated in every moment. And they're all kind of connected like an 8-ball, if you will. It's like those eight balls. You shake the 8-ball and then some message presents itself, and then you shake it again, another message, and if you look at all the core principles of our being, they're all on the same 8-ball. So when we're looking at one, we're actually looking at all of them. It's just that one is presenting itself for a certain period of time. So if forgiveness is presenting itself to you, and this is the topic, naturally it's because there's an attachment to the past in some form. And the attachment to the past is coming from a sense of criticism and judgment. Naturally, this idea of criticizing oneself, criticizing one's actions, criticizing the mistakes, criticizing the ways of being, what one has said, what one has experienced, criticizing and comparing to some ideal of mind, right? The ideal scenario, the ideal way it could have or should have or would have, when none of these things are grounded in the reality of the moment, because that's why forgiveness is presenting itself. It's presenting oneself as a gift to see that if you accept the energy of what this resistance of regret and guilt, and jealousy, condemnation, all the things that are coming with that energy on the other side of the coin, if there's an acceptance of that energy, then forgiveness is revealed on the other side of that coin. And forgiveness is then what is experienced as the purification of this energy siphoning through you. It's like it moves right through you like a wave. So there has to be an embracing and a welcoming of the pain that is experienced when one looks at themselves, their actions, how they've conducted themselves in some certain way. Of course, how someone else has conducted themselves or how someone else has treated you is no different, because whatever is presenting oneself in the mirror is an exact replica of what one's energy is holding in corresponding fashion. Now, this is not to justify actions that someone has done that may have been abusive or harmful or what have you, though if you are willing to take the responsibility to recognize that what is being revealed to you by this situation or by this person or by this situation happening, in a sense, to you, is what you have given. You have given this in some way. You have acted in this way in some form. And it is very likely that it is still occurring, because that is why initially, when the energy comes, it initially comes with a projection. This person, this thing, this should have happened, they should do this, they shouldn't have done that. It comes with a projection. And it's a rightful energy, that projection, because there's trauma and it's painful. It's not the most fun thing to experience. However, as we come to experience it, we come to know that the capacity that we have to act in this way has been done and is still potentially being done, or we have the capacity to do it in some form, or we will do it in some form if we do not see it, if we do not bring it to light. So by way of this acceptance and this humbling, this is where true forgiveness is experienced, and this is the release that we come into, and the deep feeling of that forgiveness, which then can merge as we shake the 8 ball, into gratitude, appreciation for this happening, for this revealing. A certain return to a higher level of integrity. Right? To continue to align oneself with deeper and deeper knowing of, again, all of the principles on this 8 ball, and they will just present themselves in different ways at different times because they have different energies to them. And that's the point of manifested existence, of course, is that we experience many different explorations of the same one energy. So this is something I endlessly practice, where everything that I perceive, everything that comes into my reality, everything that is in this manifested hologram is an aspect of self in some form. So any ounce of pushing against, I know that there's something inward that has to be looked at. Any sense of judgment, any sense of condemnation and criticism, I know that is me. I do this in some way. I act in this way in some form. I've done this before. I have the capacity to do it again. So to catch it is simply being aware and bringing that compassion to see you have no right to judge any other. There is no right to judge any other about anything. And many times we can see that this happens on autopilot. It's not something we're even doing. It's just happening, just like everything else in our experience, just spontaneously arising. So we see that we don't really even have control over that. We have control over one thing, which is to continue to be what we are, which is the source of God, the source of the love of everything, which is this lens of witnessing perception that just simply is. Observant within it all, thus then willing to experience it all. If the mind is running with judgments about someone, then let the mind run about judgments with someone. See that they have no real fuel. You see it as a traumatic aspect of your own being that's manifesting. It's projecting, it's expressing, and this is why we're all in it together equally, because we're all holding various elements of this. No matter how enlightened or aware one is, or where anyone is at on the experience, naturally there is going to be a deeper level of peace. There's going to be a further clarity, and at the same time, there are still traumas and things that are manifested. So we have to take everything with a grain of salt, and again, bring it back to our own practice. Recognize there's no one's going to give you enlightenment. Right? There's natural guidance and pointers and energy transmissions and all kinds of things that will support as tools, as means of purification. And we must humble ourselves to those things, because they're likely what's going to accelerate the process for us. That's why you're all here, and I respect you each for that. And just in the same my own path, I look at each of these questions as an opportunity for me to learn. I continue to look at all of the mentors and teachers that I continue to resonate with over my path in humble ways. We're all endlessly learning in this sense, though at a certain point and at certain points we continue to come to deeper levels of simplicity where, we may not necessarily need certain things as much anymore, or we may not see it in the same way. Right? We begin to really look to spread that attention, to spread the perspective, to see that the value and the teachings and the transmissions of enlightened energy, all that is actually coming from everywhere and everything, endlessly so. So I hope this was helpful on that topic. If there's any other topics we'd like to dive into, naturally this would be a good time to present those. If you haven't shared this video or started a watch party, if you're still here and you're finding value, it would be likely valuable to many others. So I know many of you are doing that, which I really am grateful for. Wow, lots of comments. Yes, David, Yoki. Object merges in subject, this is true. Thank you, David, for sharing and being here. And all of you, everyone else. What does the word holiness bring up for you? The word holiness brings up a certain sacred energy, in which is a manifestation of the source in its beauty. As we've become disconnected from this source and the holiness and the sacredness of life, naturally we've created many things in which may not on the surface represent this beauty and this sacred essence. So as we come to knowing on the path, we naturally look to bring this sacredness into all of our moments. We look to bring the sacredness into our meals, sacredness into our conversations, sacredness and holiness into our meditations, into our rituals, sacredness and holiness into our experience in nature. Today, the nature time was a complete prayer. I was singing the whole time, was reverently respecting and bringing love and compassion and healing to all the nature in that area, doing as much as I could in an easeful manner to continue to respect the sacredness of where I was at and the environment that I was experiencing. To come to the holiness of the Holy Spirit, or the true Christ, the true Shakti, the true movement of energy in form, source in form, is to see that the source is within all. So adamant or inanimate objects, this microphone, this computer, beings and people, animals, plants, places, roads, cars, everything, we're continuing to bring our deepest level of respect as best as we can. We don't need to have everything perfect. It's just to bring that respect and to see the sacredness of all things. And that whatever has been gifted into our reality, whatever has been gifted into the nature of our existence is to be held in that holiness and sacredness, because it's been gifted for a reason. It's been gifted because you are ready to see yourself more. And you can see yourself more through the meditation within all things. Naturally, when we meditate upon things in which are closer to source in their natural form, like nature, like a being who holds this energy, like a deity or an essence, an energy, a mantra, a frequency, a tone, a vibration, all of these things will bring us in a sense more efficiently there, because they're emitting a certain power that can lend a helping hand. Yet we can still practice this in the same way with all inanimate objects as well. Everything we own, everything we come across, the situations we move in, the ground underneath our feet, the asphalt, the door that we open, everything becomes this same manifestation. This is true holiness and sacredness in my view. It's to see everything from this light. To awaken the light within is to see everything with this light, to shine the light upon anything, to see you need nothing from anything, but you can give everything to everything. And thus there can be a true reverent journey that unfolds there, an ongoing reverent journey in practice as we hit 55 on the time. Being kissed by the microphone. This is true. I'm happy you like the music. I just created this actually before the session. I mean, some of the notes I've already played in previous sessions, but I added a nice little piece to it. So I hope this definition, in my view, on holiness is good. Yeah. Checks out. Who else is here? There's a lot of you here, but there's only a few of you commenting. I mean, you don't have to comment, but it's always nice to see. If there's any other questions or just, as you can see, if you just put out a topic, I can explore it. You don't even need to ask a question. You just put a topic out. Starseeds. I'm sure there's many starseeds here. I know someone was asking about what my lineage was, what planets I was from last time. I think that was Lily, actually. I told them I'd leave that for another day. It's not today. But certainly been around the universe, as many of you have as well. And, when coming... what's actually really funny is the fact that in the midst of all this crisis or whatever, CNN released that there's UFOs that they've been tracking, or UFO sightings and all that, and there was maybe one day of sharing about these things. It was maybe one day. That shows how in the thick of it we are with this COVID thing. UFOs get released on CNN and not really even a peep. Of course, so many of you likely are already in the knowing of this, or in recollection, or have had maybe direct experiences. I know many people who've been physically abducted when they're younger, or have had run-ins with beings. I've had many run-ins with beings on various energetic levels and physical levels. I mean, I've seen UFO ships and as I mentioned before, some things in childhood. But likely many of you who've come to know this or come to recognize the reality of these happenings, maybe it's not so much of a big deal, but I just found that funny that it was literally 1 or 2 days of sharing, and after that no one's really talking about it. I guess now everyone's talking about the avatars, Facebook avatars. That's the thing now. David remembers choosing this body. That's cool. As I posted a video this week about the activation of past lives, or remembrance of past lives, and extrasensory perceptions, and all this thing, and so the clear message in the video was, as most of you likely saw, which was really about not paying too much attention to these things, other than how they naturally arise to you. And it's, of course, in that kind of sense of ease that these things will, these kind of happenings, experiences, abilities, gifts, will continue to reveal themselves more and more, because you're in a place of ease and receptivity. So there are specific techniques, of course, where you can, practice to activate these things. But if you haven't noticed yet over the course of these sessions, hopefully, some of you have been watching the majority of them, and you can go on my YouTube to watch all the rest of them. The majority of what's being pointed to here is a very simple process of meditative awareness, which is inquiring into everything the moment it arises. And what that means is, at any point in which you have something that naturally arises in consciousness, that's very, easeful, just a topic that's coming to you. These are things in which can be naturally observed and explored just by placing your attention on them. Setting the intention to contemplate. I do this a lot of times in the evening before bed, where if I go into the evening time to journey, into some journey or into some dream time, there may be a topic, a specific aspect of focus that I look to explore. And as you explore just that specific topic, any sort of, it could just be a phrase, it could be a person, it could be a situation, it could be some aspect of your healing. Just bringing that into consciousness and placing your attention upon it and continuing to see how you deepen into the onion layers of it. There's such a beauty that can manifest here, because through this stream of consciousness continues to reveal everything that is required, really. Everything that's required for your path will be revealed through this, and it's always been the case. It's just that sometimes it's too painful to look at it, or there's distractions. So that's why we have to set the time, for our practice, so that we can really, if we have things we're writing down in a journal. I put out the journaling exercise that's very similar to that. It's on my website, infinitecheek.com. I can't share it, but you can go on the site and explore, this practice of, if you're doing that through the day and, you want to set a time to do this, there's many different ways, but at a certain point you can just simply go through the fluidity of your day where you're exploring the onion layers of topics or varying perspectives ongoingly, in a never-ending type of way. But I do like before bed, because the body and mind is very clear and you start to tap into the kind of middle point between worlds. And in so many ways, this will start to activate your dreams. There's other tools you can use to do that. The liberation remedy, alchemical remedies that we share, those are really helpful for that too. Not absolutely necessary, but for a lot of you, it could very much support. I know many of you have been taking that. You can share your experience, maybe even in the chat. But yeah, if there's any other questions or comments, topics, I'll remind you again that this would be a time to explore this. Hello everyone. Mary, no. So once again, if you feel called to share, start a watch party, then please do. I am going to actually link the weekend's event, just so you guys all have that. It's going to be a full array of experiences, Tai Chi, energy cultivation practices on Saturday. We won't be outside, but I will talk about how to cultivate energy through the elements. It's pretty simple, like most things I bring up here, but it's the simple practices which are most potent. We'll have an ecstatic dance sound healing in the evening on Saturday. Sunday, I'll be going through the opening of the throat chakra, which we've already kind of done, but I want to get into it a little bit more in detail mid-afternoon on Sunday. And then Sunday evening, we'll be doing the same experience like we're doing tonight. So I'm going to post the link to that here. For those on Universal Awakening, I don't want to post groups in that group. I know we try and keep that to the minimal, but you guys can add me as a friend, or just go on the main live channel, live feed, and you'll get the link there. Virtual retreat will be recorded, yes. Who are my main influences? In this lifetime, Ramaji was my most recent. Well, it's kind of hard to say because I'm learning from so many. I've taken things from so many beings. I learned from all of you. Like it's happening all the time. But Ramaji was one of my great teachers who has a very specific energy transmission that supported me on my path. Human design as a system has been very supportive. Naturally, this is why I do readings now and infuse it into all the one-on-one work I do, because it's so accurate. Out of all the systems I've explored, numerology, astrology, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, wealth profile, all of them, I actually still navigate many of those, but human design is most practical in my view, and most accessible for a lot of people. So if you haven't done a reading, that'd be a great recommendation. You can go get your free chart online. A lot of places to do so too. And I have that 3-hour free course on my website, so you can go watch that. Human design is very helpful. Many of the non-dual Advaita teachers obviously have been very supportive. Nisargadatta Gita is a great book. The Keylontic Science, Wisdom, Law of One teachings, these are universal-based teachings, cosmic-based teachings, in which are, in a sense, the core of what all religions are speaking on this planet. Keylontic Science is still very not well-known system, especially in the New Age, mainly because it kind of brings to light a lot of the, questionable things in the New Age culture, but it's besides the point. I mean, the connection to Christ, the original Christ, the true Christ, this energy of is always available and it's always influencing, because it's in a sense the Christ, Jeshua Sananda avatar, is a being who held the essence of 12th dimensional consciousness on this planet. So that energy is a collective of beings. It's not just one being. He's a manifestation of one, but there's a collective of beings that were a part of that energy, that we all have, in a sense, access to in our own right, to access our avatar 12th dimensional consciousness. So, so I'm kind of rambling here, but it's a great piece. I mean, it is the piece. So it's not so much rambling. It really is the piece. I've had many other influences and teachers, so many guides. I mean, naturally, I walked the path of being a direct disciple of Yogi-Raj Siddhanath Guranath. You could look him up on YouTube. He's a, old school grandfather Himalayan master. Very powerful Shaktipat, which I received directly. And I stayed at his ashram for some time and walked that traditional disciple guru path, which in a sense I've moved on from, but there's a beauty to that in a certain right. Now, I mean, we're coming to a place where that's not as necessary. There's a much faster path available now. The energies are more ripe, if you will. And it's a sense of changing of the guards. I was thinking about this of Sadhguru today. He has gatherings of 1 million people, and he's probably influenced many of us in some way. We see the videos everywhere, and maybe watched at least one of his videos. He was an initial great teacher and mentor through just YouTube. But in a certain way, there is a changing of the guards happening with some of these older masters, which I'm so grateful for, and I hope all of you are, because they have what paved the way. And the guru topic gets a bad rap in the New Age culture because, there's so many of them, and it's questionable, some of them, or, some have not held integrity or to what they've said or shared or what have you, but that's just a balancing of us recognizing we're all human. And at the same time, there are many masters who which do hold to integrity in higher and higher ways. And this is who we'll continue to come back to anyways. We'll explore. There's so many teachers everywhere, so many mentors, so many YouTube streams. We'll naturally navigate many of them, and we'll come to many of them. You're going through a news feed, and you're going to find all kinds of things. And yet we'll always come back to the messages in which really ring true, and which are timeless, those that stand the test of time. Right? Like, teachings of Lao Tzu, Hao Hu Ching, a timeless book, which isn't even really confirmed that it is his teaching. It just does feel like him, that's for sure. Can you speak to your understanding of trees? This is a great topic, actually. There's something I read once that really rang true, in a metaphorical sense, energetic level, or what have you, but it was that for every tree on the planet is a past being, a past human, a human that's died. And then recently, actually, I saw a new grave that's being developed, that the body is put in this like mesh, like bound of earth with seeds in it, and then a tree grows from that. So I found that just so magnificently symbolic of this idea that, you know, every past being on this earth, a tree is manifested. You know, I think it's a really beautiful thing. But regardless if that's the case, we have to treat plants and animals, of course animals, but trees, you know, of course, as a living being, a recognition that they are intelligent. There's an intelligence to them, and that they can provide great amounts of wisdom. They can provide great amounts of energy. You know, the typical idea of tree hugging and all that. This is not just, you know, that's obviously been, you know, joked about, but the reality is it's a very powerful practice. But just like we don't run up and just hug anyone, especially nowadays, we have to, you know, in a sense, commune with a tree, to like even to ask for its permission. Just like we should ask a tree or ask a plant before we take its fruit, if we are able to cultivate fruit. Can I take this? And with a tree, can I touch you? Can I hug you? Can I be around you? You know, like, of course, trees are a little bit more, in a sense, welcoming than a lot of humans, but you know, there's sometimes where that's just not the case, or you may find that a tree may be of a lower energy. It may end up draining your energy. It may not necessarily be able to provide, you know, what you're looking for from it, if you're looking for something from it. So there's a certain intelligence with trees that we have to respect, like all nature. And you know, we spoke about in the detox call about the compassionate way of eating, for instance, which comes back to the teachings of Christ, because in the original Essene teachings, the Essenes were, in a sense, the metaphysical section, kind of like how Sufism to Muslim is to, you know, this is what the Essene essence of Christianity is. And the teachings of Essene, wisdom around food and true Essene, they call it Essene fruitarianism, and I just call it the original fruitarianism, which a fruitarianism we think of just eating fruits, like traditional fruits, but the original Essene fruitarianism is just simply eating what does not need to kill anything, let alone, of course, animals, but also plants. Right, so like some vegetables will not be included in that because you have to kill the plant to eat the vegetable. Of course, you know, you can sometimes just cut the leaf off, like a lettuce or something like that. But the majority of the time, we don't have access to be able to do that. So there's certain levels to this, of course. You know, we have to go and navigate what's practical. But you know, it's a natural kind of opportunity for us to see, just in that perspective, the power of compassion and the power of respecting plants and trees as living beings, and in that, then we receive what you know, we receive what is meant for us in that interaction, just like with a human interaction, right? So with this is to be done with all beings, and of course, as we begin to ignite this compassion within ourselves, we, in essence, begin to commune with animals like in the original Eden. And the original Eden was actually called Lyra. Lyra, this was like 570 million years ago, and Lyra was like the original Eden, you know, Garden of Eden, where everything, you know, coexisted among each other, and there was no consumption, there's no carnivore energy, you know, like there's no killing. There was just this compassion, and then that is where we can experience the communion with all of existence, because we can actually viscerally experience it, like so clearly. You know, it's like many of you likely have done some psychedelics or something. I wouldn't recommend it now, but you know, it was a part of my journey too. And in those experiences, naturally, you commune with things much easier because you're connecting to that layer of subtlety and energy that is able to see the reality of what a forest should look like lit up, you know. It really is lit up, like looking up into the universe, lit up, not black with a few stars and planets, like lit up. Worlds upon worlds. This is what the higher heavens, are. So as we connect again more and more to this within ourselves, and as collectively we all do this over the endless period of time, this will continue to transform our relationship with nature in this way. And then from that, the communion and the interaction with nature becomes much more obvious, much more available, much more accessible. So hopefully that's doing its trick. That's an interesting topic, David, about the fruits in Eden. I don't know, actually. I can imagine, multiple fruits per one tree, fractal moving energies of trees that can communicate so clearly. Like, you can communicate with trees. I started doing this about a year and a half ago. I started really connecting and communicating. You can feel their personalities in a sense. You can feel what they're feeling. You can feel if they're really alive or if they're not. You can feel what they desire to express. You can feel if they're lonely. There's all kinds of things that you can feel. So if we can imagine that being much more visceral, this is how I would perceive it. Nature is alive. So again, I come back to today's venture in nature because I haven't, hasn't been as nice for me to really spend that much time in this way, at least. But the obvious nature of, as we spoke about on Sunday's session, about the synchronicities, let's say, of animals coming around, of birds singing when you sing, of emitting a certain energy of healing into the water, and then butterflies moving, all of these things become much more apparent as there's silence, and as there's a true respect and reverence and compassion for the nature in which is around you, because then you're going to come into the clarity of what nature is always looking to express. It's always looking to be one with you, if you will. Move with you, experience with you, like dance with you. That's what nature's doing, and that's what we all want to do with each other. We just want to dance. We want to create music. We want to create art. We want to co-create like beautiful situations and experiences. This is what we're, in a sense, now fiending for, because we've been limited from doing this. So it naturally is going to happen in due time. It's what we're doing here now. Each of these words you're giving, each of these questions, we're dancing together. We move through a vortex of energy together, and we travel through the universe. We explore. We navigate. Just watch a documentary on psychedelics. There you go. So as I'm, I was just getting to the point about this nature thing. Nature is. It's easier to experience synchronicity in nature than it is in a city, we could say. Not necessarily because it won't be happening equally amount, but because as you really tune in, you'll see how intimate you can really become with the essence of the natural world. The synthetic world is still a part of the natural world, because all synthetic elements, of course, are made from nature. But the more that they're manipulated, the more that it creates rigidity and the ability to fluidly move with them. And so we're in a time right now where society is restructuring itself so that it can come to this balance. We don't have to destroy cities, and we don't have to go out into the forest. We can bring everything together. We can bring cities and the forest together. We can create society and create our earth in a way that's communing with nature in all ways. And this is how then we really up-level, because science and what our ability has become as a human race to accelerate our evolution and technologies and all this is a beautiful thing. However, it is only ever on the foundation of the feminine, on the foundation of the earth. And if this is forgotten, then this is when all of those tools are crumbled. So if we remember quick enough, then those things do not have to crumble. Society doesn't have to fall apart completely for it to be rebuilt. We can transform it. We can alchemize it in a way that's very graceful. So it doesn't need to be harder than it is. So yeah. It's a wonderful time. It's always a wonderful time. But again, these times it never happened before on this planet. So hopefully that's a ignition within the heart of hearts. Because this planet's been here for a very long time. So I will put it out there again. If there's any questions, comments, etc. Naturally, if you haven't shared this or started a watch party and you feel called to, you feel others could benefit from this, then please do this. The virtual weekend retreat experience will be this weekend. There will be multiple sessions, afternoon and evening Eastern time. I put the link in the comments, which I'll do one more time. And if you have not watched... little music, I'll jump in there for you. If you haven't watched the previous stuff on YouTube, go on my page. If you're not connected, you can add me on Facebook and go on my Facebook. You'll see my YouTube link, because I cannot yet share my website on Facebook. It's been blocked, but there's a new website link that'll be coming soon. So don't worry about that. Not that you're worried. I guess I'm just talking to myself. Deep love, Lily, Mary, Erica, everyone. Blessings. This has been wonderful, as it always is. I don't have too much else to say. It's been a long day, as I've shared with all of you. If you're not connected with me, feel free to add me on Facebook. The more we like this video, obviously the more boost it gets on the algorithm, and more people can benefit, because this is an hour and certain minutes of golden light that we're all a part of, and we are all sharing upon this planet. And I appreciate you all for being here. And I will see you all this weekend, hopefully. So have a beautiful night or day, wherever you are. And we will connect when the time is right. Deep love.